Hi, everyone, and welcome to another very special Talking Insomnia episode where Brittany is with us. Welcome.
Hi.
Thanks so much for being here, Brittany. And for those of you who don't know Brittany, I refer to something you wrote. I think it was like almost 2 years ago, where you actually completed a full like Ironman triathlon after a night of like no sleep. And I've referred so many people to that episode, people who've been worried about like, I don't think I can do this if I don't sleep, etc. So we'll talk more about that. But I remember that, of course. But first of all, I'd like to ask this question: How did you come across the channel?
So it was during when I was going through my own sleeping issues. I had pretty much tried looked up everything I could online, and I mean, I wasn't finding a whole lot that was helpful. It was all the same old stuff, follow this bedtime routine, do all the sleep hygiene stuff. And finally, I was like, well, I like to listen to podcasts. Maybe there's something like a sleep podcast I can find that would be helpful. So finally, I searched for that, and then I found you. It was in like a podcast app. So I started listening to you, and I was like, it was pretty like refreshing because it was like completely different than what I had already been researching and already trying to implement.
Absolutely, and roughly like that was like maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, something like that, or
yeah, it was. Yep, it was about 3 years ago because my daughter was around 5 or 6 months. Yeah, she was still a baby. She's 3.5 now. So yeah, it was a little while ago, but yeah, it was. I think I've been going through some sleeping issues for probably since she was born. So it'd been probably 7 or 8 months of sleeping issues that had been going on since before I found you.
Got it. So it was the podcast. I got it. And yeah, speaking of that, so yes, tell us what happened. So before she was born, you were sleeping well, and then it was with her being born that it started having some trouble sleeping, or what happened?
Yeah, well, yeah. So after she was born, she, like any newborn, she didn't sleep well. So, and I was kind of a health conscious person, and I knew like the midwives were telling me, oh yeah, sleep's really important right now. Get it sleep when you can, nap when the baby naps, and all that. And so I was like, oh man, I really got to sleep. They're telling me this is important for my health. So it like my stress level went up. I was like, okay, I'm going to try to sleep when the baby's sleeping. I'm going to try to do all these things that they say. But then that didn't work. The baby would sleep and I'd be like wide awake at night or in the middle of the day. And she'd be up every 2 hours. So then I was anticipating that, her getting up and not being able to sleep in the next few hours. So that just made it worse. So that's what started it. And then we had a bunch of like stressful things happen. That was probably about 6 months later. My sleeping was doing okay. It wasn't great, but she was about 6 months old. And so I started a new job. We bought and sold our house, or sold our house and bought a new house. And then I signed up for the Ironman. So it was just a lot going on all at once. It was all like within a 2-week span. So then I noticed right after all that happened, then my sleeping got a lot worse. So the stressful events just kind of like triggered something where I wasn't sleeping well. And then, so I was just up at night, and then it just seemed to get progressively worse and worse until I was like, okay, there's something wrong. There's something going on. And so I just started like researching how to fix it. And that's what like kind of led me down the rabbit hole of doing all these things. So I think the first like couple of weeks, I was, not sleeping great, but it was okay. But then I started to try stuff, and that's when it like really, like, because the anxiety of something not working, and that like really made me like confused. I was like, wait, this is supposed to help me sleep, and it's doing the opposite. So I went and I saw my midwife after I think I was sleeping maybe 3 or 4 hours a night at that time. And she prescribed me Ambien. So I was like, okay. And she only gave me 3 pills. So I was like, okay, I just need the 3 nights of sleep, and I'll get back to reset on my cycle, and then everything will be good. So I took it one night. I slept okay. got probably 7 hours of sleep, and that was actually really good. And then I was like, okay, I'll wait a couple nights, see how it goes, and then if I'm still struggling, I'll take another one. So I did that. I was still not sleeping very well without the Ambien. So I took another one, and then I slept for about 2 hours. I woke up and I was like wide awake and anxious. I was like, what's going on? It wasn't working. And that like made everything way worse. I'm like, okay, there's something seriously wrong with me now that the Ambien's not working. So then things got even worse after that. So
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's, it's a lot of this is like a common story, but what's really struck me, because it's the second time I hear exactly the same thing, is someone recently said exactly the same thing, that their midwife told them like right after they had a baby, like it's so important to sleep, and that actually became like what triggered everything. So
yeah.
definitely a little problem there with now I'm like, we should educate all the midwives about like being very careful about what they say. But anyway, and so I'm sure you went through kind of like sleep hygiene. Did you try supplements and all those type of things as well, or?
Yeah, I tried pretty much any supplement you can say or think of. I tried it all. None of it worked. I did the CBD. I took another medication called hydroxine that my doctor prescribed. I also tried hypnotherapy, and I tried Reiki. And then I did meditation. You name it, I tried it. Like all that stuff, like it was because it was an effort to try to make me sleep more. It was not helpful. Yeah, so it was once I realized that putting all the effort into trying to sleep was actually backfiring, that I started to sleep better. That's when I saw improvements. But it took time, because it's really hard to get out of that mindset of sleep is really important, and if you're not sleeping, your life is not going to go well, and you're going to ruin your next day. You're not going to be able to do all these things on your to-do list.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so this period where there was a struggle, you were sleeping very little, how it started, when your baby was little, and for how long was that struggle going on?
So it was pretty intense for a few months. It still continued after that, but it was a couple months where I was not sleeping more than 3 hours a night. And I remember one night I was so desperate and so like crazy. I went to the urgent care, and I just like broke down at the urgent care, and one of the physicians there, they told me to go to the ER. So I went to the ER. And I saw a psychiatrist at the ER, and yeah, that was tough, but they just prescribed me more medication. So that didn't help.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Wow.
they went through like a whole long like spiel, like trying to talk about it, but then they just prescribed me the medication. And that night I went home. I was like, okay, well, maybe this is a new medication. Maybe this one will work. But I was still up, and then I was like, okay, there's still something really wrong with me. But that was before I discovered like you.
Yeah, I asked the question in not the most helpful way, but I was gonna ask, how long did it take until you found the podcast? It was like
yeah, I think it was, I'm trying to remember. I think it was a few months into it that I found the podcast.
Okay.
And
Very
so I
well.
started implementing all that stuff, and that's when I really started to see improvements. Like, I mean, it would still take me a couple, 2 or 3 hours to fall asleep, but I wasn't up the whole entire night. So, I mean, just seeing that improvement was like super helpful. And I was like, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. It's all just my thoughts and, just anxiety. And this is something that I can fix. It's just how I'm, approaching this. So as I started to approach it differently, that's when I really started to realize, oh, there's some improvement. But I mean, I was still having some issues falling asleep, and I was training for an Ironman at the same time. Like, so I would go on these, 7-hour bike rides, and I would still only sleep like 5 hours the night before. So there was still a little bit of like anxiety going on for a while. Some nights I would sleep good. I would sleep 8 hours. Some nights I would sleep 4 or 5 hours. It never was got bad, really bad after I discovered you. Like I wasn't back to the 1 to 2 hour nights. But I think just the training for the Ironman, I think I had some anxiety around this performance and not sleeping part. So that's probably why I wasn't like sleeping great every single night. So yeah, so then that leads up to the Ironman. So coming into the Ironman, like 3 or 4 nights before the Ironman, I did not sleep well. Like there was just a lot of stuff that went on, like a lot of things that went wrong that shouldn't have gone wrong. So that didn't help either. Like I booked the wrong plane day, or my flight was booked for the wrong day. So I was there late. I lost my race packet, and there's a lot of other stuff. I won't go into the details, but so I wasn't sleeping well the few nights before. And then, so come the night before the Ironman, I was like, okay, this night I'm gonna sleep because I need my sleep. I have a 13-hour race tomorrow, so I went to bed. I tried to like do all the things to make me sleep, even though I knew they weren't. I mean, I knew they weren't going to help. But so yeah, I didn't end up falling asleep until I think 3 in the morning because my brain was just. I was in hyperarousal and I was just like so like excited and nervous for the race the next day. So I think, and then I had to wake up at 4:50. So I got an hour and a half of sleep that night.
Wow.
And yeah, and the nights leading up to it, I hadn't slept well either. So yeah, going into Ironman, like I hadn't had any sleep at all, but I got up, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. That night before though, when I was trying to sleep, I remember thinking, if I don't sleep, I'm not gonna be able to do the Ironman. My whole day's, all the training, it's gonna be for nothing. I'm gonna have to quit. I'm not gonna be able to do it. So I think I put that sleep pressure on myself because I was like, okay, if I'm not sleeping tonight, my body will physically be incapable of doing this Ironman. But I mean, I didn't really sleep, and I went and I woke up, I got ready, got all my stuff, and I started the swim, and then I was in autopilot from there, and I did it. So, I mean, I was a little tired, but I mean, I had adrenaline, and it pushed me through. I didn't even do it in the super, I mean, not a fast time, not a slow time. I was just average, I guess, but I did it. I did well. It was a little over 13 hours it took me to do it. So, yeah.
And for those, because I know when you shared this, you know, what this entails, I was like, wow. So what is this Ironman?
It's, so you swim 2.4 miles, and for me, I did it in a river. And then you get out and then you bike for 112 miles. And then after that, you get off your bike and then you run 26.2 miles.
That's insane. Oh my God. And again, like, the fact that you completed this after like barely sleeping at all for nights. I mean, it goes against so much of what we're always taught. So I was so excited when you told me that, like you said, emailing, you completed it. But actually, before we talk more about that, again, you've already touched upon this, but I think it's so important. Like you somewhere in your mind, there was this idea that maybe you have to cancel it,
Mm-hmm.
Was that, do you think that was ever a possibility, or it was maybe like a fleeting idea? Do you think you were you at the, could you have canceled it, or you probably wouldn't have happened actually?
Well, I mean, I could have canceled it, but I knew that just wasn't going to happen because of all the work I'd put into training and the money I mean, Ironmans aren't cheap. So like if I would have canceled, it just would have been awful because of everything I did. And then, I mean, I knew I had to at least try no matter what, like the night was like, I had to put effort in and just do what I could the next day. Even though there's this part of me that was like, still wanting to sleep to have the energy, but I mean, I didn't end up needing it.
Absolutely. The reason I'm asking about this is, for anyone out there who hears this, I want to say that, of course, if you do end up canceling something, whether it's a trip or a social gathering or something like that, if you've canceled something, then don't be hard on yourself. I mean, you canceled it for very valid reasons. It's an act of like self-kindness, of course. But on the flip side, I mean, if you do cancel something, then you always have that sense of like, or you may often have that sense of like, I couldn't do it because of the insomnia, and like, and then in the future, it's like some other thing that, oh no, I can't do this. Also, it's I was so glad to hear you completed that, because it's like, it can be so freeing to see that I can do things even if I didn't sleep. It can be so freeing. But what I didn't know was like the follow-up story, because after that, I think, you know, you weren't as active on the channel and commenting as much. So what happened after that?
So after that, I started sleeping pretty well, actually. I think because I knew I could do an Ironman on no sleep. I was like, okay, if I can do an Ironman, then I don't really need to sleep for any of this other daily stuff. Like, it was like, I never to remind myself, because I would still have occasionally a night where it took me a little while to fall asleep, and I was like, okay, it's okay. Your day is going to be fine tomorrow. You did an Ironman on no sleep. You can do this. So it was definitely, I think it actually helped me to improve my sleep in a weird way. But yeah, so my sleeping was a lot better. I mean, I still have setbacks that happen, or like speed bumps or whatever you want to call them. But I know, like, I have like the right mindset now, that I'm not letting it go down that rabbit hole and not making it worse by trying all these other things. Yeah, and right now I have another baby, so I've had a little bit of issue sleeping, but it's not like becoming what it was. Like, I mean, a lot of the nights I still sleep pretty well, and there's nights where, you know, I struggle to sleep because, yeah, I mean, with a baby you don't always get great sleep because they wake up in the middle of the night. But yeah, this time I'm approaching it a lot different, so it's not getting worse. If I have one bad night, it's okay. The next night I usually will sleep pretty well. So I'm not letting it ruin my next night. Yeah, like
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I like to think of it like, if you're, because I'm a health coach, and a lot of people, they will like sabotage themselves and have like a really bad day where they overeat and like just eat too much, and then they feel really bad and really guilty, and they think, okay, I ruined it. This is it. Not going to be able to do this anymore. And I think it's similar to sleep, where like you have one bad night, you're like, well, great, I'm not going to be sleeping good now. Like, this is, I went down this path again, and you get the anxiety going. But yeah, I found that if you just give yourself some, like, just grace and just be kind to yourself, and you just, like, you have to really think about those thought patterns and try to like reframe them into different thought patterns that help you, rather than kind of hinder your progress. That helps too. So that's what I've been trying to like coach myself recently, when I have those nights, in a way that like I coach my users.
Absolutely. I think it makes so much sense. And I think a different way of saying the same thing is like meaning that a lot of times I hear someone, you know, they have a night where they don't sleep much, and then there's this thought that, oh, this means that something's wrong with me. This means I'm never going to sleep well. This means this means that. But it really doesn't mean anything, except that you were a little anxious or something like that. And so, and I think it could, I'm sure, curious about your comment on this, but I'm sure it can be the same thing with somebody who's, let's say, trying to lose weight, that they like, oh, I ate like 5 donuts today. This means I'm never going to lose weight. I'm never going to do well. But it doesn't mean anything like that. It's just something that happened, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just an event. Yeah, I think it's just how you think about it, and, you know, the actions you take moving forward. That's what matters. It's not that one event doesn't really have a big impact on anything.
Yeah, exactly. And one other thing that I would super interested in hearing your thoughts on is like, as you know, and some, you know, a lot of people know that when you have a small baby, of course, there's going to be some, you know, you're not going to sleep great because that little baby's going to wake you up, right? So you're definitely going to have sleep disruption, which is so different from insomnia, because sleep disruption is like, it's just limited to whatever is disrupting your sleep. But insomnia is
Mhm.
when you respond to that by like doing a lot of things. So in a way, when I hear your story here, I'm thinking like, okay, so there's still some sleep disruption, which is completely natural, and there may be a little bit of like more response to it because you had trouble in the past, but mostly that response isn't there, so therefore it doesn't escalate or doesn't become a thing. Would you say that's pretty true? Or
Yeah, I think that's very accurate. Um, I just I feel like I'm trying not to respond this time around. Like I might have a bad night and worry, well, the night before my baby was up 3 times and I didn't get much sleep, so I really got to sleep tonight because I have stuff to do tomorrow. But I really have to like think, oh wait, that's okay. I mean, I didn't sleep last night. It's okay. I might sleep tonight. I might not. And if I don't, I'm still gonna be. I'll be fine. So yeah, I think that's changed a lot. And yeah, there's definitely the situational or the I forgot what you said
yeah,
about the
circumstance,
different
yes,
types,
the sleep
but
disruption.
yeah, that yeah. I think that's also like another difference is a lot of times that's the lack of sleep I'm getting, and sometimes I'll still have a little anxiety about it, but I don't let it overtake my life.
Exactly. It's interesting, by the way, like for all of us humans, I think how often we just have to remind ourselves. We get into this worry pattern and we know like we've been there so many times before. It's always been fine. I think we just, our default is to kind of problem solve, and our brain always wants to keep us safe. So we often have to just remind ourselves of what we already know. And so very well, I think if we summarize kind of like, for me, I would say this, like hearing what you shared, that learning that there was nothing wrong with you, that everything we try to do to achieve sleep is kind of like what actually makes us trouble sleeping. Those things were really helpful for you. Or what would you say if you talk to yourself, when you had trouble sleeping, or somebody in your situation, what would you tell them that you think would be helpful?
Um, I would just say, um, well, I would try to help them just realize that, sleep isn't actually that necessary. It's nice to be able to sleep 8 hours a day, but if you kind of can reframe your thinking to, I need to sleep to function, to more sleep is helpful, but I don't need, I can do okay if I only sleep a few hours the next day, and I can still do great. And just, I don't know, just really changing how you think about sleep can be really helpful. So I think that was one of the biggest things for me is just my thoughts around sleep were like, it's such a big priority. So I had to really change that around.
Absolutely, so true. And now the story continues a little bit here, because after you completed the Ironman triathlon, we weren't in touch really so much. But then a couple of weeks ago, you wrote a comment on the YouTube channel where you said, "Hey, I'm interested in becoming a sleep coach." Was that something that had been in your mind, or it just came to you there, or what made you decide to take that
Yeah.
path?
Oh, I'd been thinking about it for a little while, probably since I started doing better myself. But like I was like kind of on the fence, not sure. But then I had like a couple of bad nights of sleep. I went back to your YouTube channel, and then I just felt kind of inspired to just take that leap to become a sleep coach, because I feel like I I know like I've struggled, but I've also learned a lot, and I think I can help other people that are in the pits that are struggling as well.
100%. So yeah, so for anyone tuning in here, I'm very very glad to share that you're joining the next batch in October and becoming a sleep coach. So excited! It's gonna be super. Uh, and what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, and we talked about this just you and I, Brittany, but I think it's really nice to share with everyone that I think obviously, like, however you set up your coaching is like up to you, but you have like these two angles that I think are so helpful. Like you have the experience from, you know, being a mom and that being the trigger, and also like the kind of health path where like you're very healthy and health is very important to you, and that can be a trigger for sleep. So I think both those are, you know, both those niches, if you will, like, will be super helpful. So what are you just not to put you on the spot, but just curious about your thoughts, is one or the other like more interesting or fun to you, or just like generally helping all people with trouble sleeping, or what do you think would be most fun?
I mean, they're both like super like interesting to me because I know like both of them are huge issues. It would be cool to help moms because I know that's what like really triggered me was the postpartum and all the just the changes that happen. Yeah, but I'm not really sure exactly what I would want to like narrow down on yet. But yeah, that I mean that does sound pretty like it would be a great field to or niche to help people with. But yeah, there's also like, you know, people training for athletic events, maybe they don't sleep, you know,
Yeah.
and or, you know, like you said, the health conscious. I know like a lot of people are with their Fitbits and their Apple Watches, they take it too far and then they're not sleeping. That's why I don't have any of those. I'm like, nope, that's gonna ruin my sleep if I keep looking at that.
100%. Very cool. Well, this is super exciting, and we'll definitely do some maybe open class together, and so people will get to learn more from you. But for now, I just want to say, yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Brittany, and look forward to working with you.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.